Welcome back. Rock the World with Kay Michelle. I am Michelle Turner. I'm the creator of Movement Lesson, and I'm here with this lovely Kay Ireland, and she will tell you about herself.
And I'm Kayla Ireland. Today, we're not just talking about what a movement disorder is, we're talking about what it's like to live with one. The experiences we discuss on this show are for educational purposes only. Please do not substitute them for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. And if you notice any pauses during this episode, we ask you to keep listening. Sometimes, someone's processing their thoughts or it's part of the natural flow of conversation.
Hi, again, I'm Michelle Turner, creative movement lesson, and I created a child or children with special needs. Um, and I now do movement lessons, so I'm known for my work with helping the children with special needs. In today's episode, we're going to break down what disorders are and how they can affect real life. A lot of people think it is about getting into a bathroom, let's say, but it really continues to be with emotional, financial, and again, yes, access to the world from something like this. I mean, gosh, YouTube, podcast, internet, it's just been, I mean, now the way that people, myself and Kay included, can express themselves and have access to the world has completely changed, right? But again, daily frustrations, again, to powerful moments of pride. We're taking you inside again, those practicalities of a real journey within a movement disorders, again, that include emotional and financial because it's not easy or can't be easy.
Mhm. It's not always easy, but it's real. And we're here to tell you how it is. I'm living proof, and you have this with your son.
Yes. Um, so my whole thing, again, let's start from the beginning, like, whether you're dealing with your child, yourself, or a loved one, just hearing movement disorders are involved is pretty, it's pretty overwhelming. It's heavy. And again, my son was totally fine until 13 months. Now, in his case, he did get vaccinated, and instead of the vaccine giving him antibodies, he got Haemophilus influenza into the head and then staph. And then they didn't diagnose him with Haemophilus influenza or staph until he was 4. So my son went from walking, talking, like I could say, "Where's the dog?" And he'd be like, "The dog." Everything was great as far as I knew, as far as a novice parent. And then he was like, and they're like, "Well, he's sick. He'll be better in a week." And a week went to 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. And then, we found out about therapies. Then we found out how they're going to make him walk or talk, which I figured, well, he did that already. Okay, he'll go back. And then they said he would never walk or talk again. His goal was to say mom. It really was. So, and Kay is living proof going through it herself.
My mom cried when I peed on the potty and drank through a straw for the first time.
Ah, talking about that one, I got potty training at 6. Now, this was 2 days before Christmas. And again, this is the emotional stuff too. Nobody gave me anything for Christmas. Nobody. I didn't get even a pair of slippers. I'm sitting there and I was married at the time and he's like, "Wow, nobody got you anything." And I'm like, "You think?" But anyway, in my head, I was like, I'm never going to have to change another diaper again in my life. Like that was my present. And it's again, this is our real world. You know what I mean? Like that's a present that you don't have to do a diaper. But again, these accomplishments, but again, it's grief. Grief of loss of life, my life, your life, what happened to my child's life. There's that. There's guilt. Um, again, I don't want to get into the whole vaccine thing because I'm not here to say vaccine nay nay, but this is my world. It was a vaccine thing, and I blame myself. because I didn't do my due diligence. I didn't, and maybe I would have had the same decisions, but I just, the doctor said we're going to do this, and I'm like, okay. And mm, to say my life was ruined, it wasn't, but it was, but it was my fault. It's my fault my son turned out like this. And people go, oh, but look at him now. He's great. He's still not the kid I gave birth to. I totally, he had to go to Foundation Through Blind. He had to go through special needs training. He had to go through autism. I mean, the therapies we've done, nonverbal, still dealing with the whole aspects of being autistic, as well as he has no immune system and the meds he has to do. And it's a lot. I can go on and
And the
on.
worst
I'm not
part
here to
is,
talk about that.
people don't talk about that part. They just say, be strong.
Now, I'm not here again. I'm not here. There's a meme that goes around that God gave these children to people because they have this extra special power. I don't believe that the Lord that I believe in said, "Oh, let's pick on the Turners." But no, we don't choose this. You didn't choose this. You just were like, "Hi, I'm here," and every day you're living with it. It's not about comparing you to anybody else, but at the same time, we'll get into it, but even just the financial pressures this puts on, it's a very real situation that I don't feel. This is why we're doing the podcast, because I think there needs to be more empathy and dialogue and being able to connect.
My
Do you
hopes and dreams look vastly different from neurotypicals. A full sports, dance, and music schedule has been replaced by countless specialty physicians, weekly therapies, and various novel evaluations. Learning to drive a car became the hope of steering my wheelchair around school, the community, and the home environment. The possibility of marriage translates to the ongoing physical assistance I will always need to perform basic activities of daily living. However, I am happy, motivated, and an active, vibrant member of society. Allow me to speak loud and proud. I am Kayla Ireland, who loves me for me, the oldest sister, a college student, a para-equestrian, and a talk show host.
Yeah, absolutely. The kid who never thought he'd walk or talk is about to graduate from college with honors, and I say with honors because he was diagnosed mentally retarded when he was 4, and that was a diagnosis back then. And again, had I had a crystal ball, or like even you, if you had a crystal ball, would you say you'd have a resume that looks like you do? I'm sure at 3 years old, again, talks of college were far away.
Or even 13.
Yeah, hormones are fun for anybody. But let's take a moment again and look at movement disorders in real life. Um, Again, for I'm about catching it early in a child. I wish someone grabbed me by the collars and said, Michelle, your life just changed. I really that was a slow orchestra to listen to. I again because I wasn't being notified. We have to see, and everything was based off of my son's failures, not his successes. And that's another hard thing to hear about. You go into all these meetings and you're being told what's wrong with your kid. Can we look at, can we look at one thing? And you know what it's like too. And they talk about you like you're not even there. That's even more fun. And so, but I'm here to really talk about understanding what a time dictated timeline is. At 1 month old, your baby should be in tummy time. It's not about being floppy or stiff. It's about really knowing what movements should be available and going after them. And if it doesn't happen, like the poor eye contact, your baby's looking through you. we have a problem. It is,
I
and
hate tummy time.
yeah.
My body can't do it.
Honestly, you shouldn't be asked to do tummy time. You are an adult. You're calcified. You're long. With cerebral palsy, there's pelvic features that are just different. You are too long. If you wanted to do tummy time, I would suggest, where your feet are dangling off the bed, but it's just your sort of your belly on up. But again, this is why you're supposed to do tummy time too at 1 month old, because it's a foundation to the movements, but it's not something that still has to be worked on at, again, you're 20, 26. I'm sorry. Okay. Okay. And so, I don't hang around in tummy time and watch TV.
We want to move. We just need the right support.
Right. But again, let's talk about what support is. First of all, support could be financial. Again, you need to buy a wheelchair, or I have a client that has a 31-year-old son that they don't have a ramp vehicle, so they have to literally lift him into the car somehow and get him in, lift him up in his wheelchair to do all those things. A ramp assisted vehicle is what, 60, $75,000.
Yeah.
Wheelchair alone is, I mean, some of these electric wheelchairs are 40, $50. I mean, 50,000. You can buy a Mercedes for cheaper than you can get a wheelchair sometimes.
My wheelchair costs more than a car, probably.
Yeah. And but again, it's a necessity for your accessibility. It's not a luxury.
Mm.
And so it's really sometimes you feel like you're climbing Mount Everest.
While the power wheelchair made my life much more efficient and effective in school, there was a huge problem. I had to keep it at school because our house was not accessible. My father, a construction worker, built a 5,000 square foot, fully wheelchair accessible house with an open floor plan and outside land adaptability. My bedroom is connected to a roll-in shower with my special bath chair. Today, I operate a quad, golf cart, and snowmobile independently in our yard. I exercise in a pool and on an adaptive tricycle. Nobody except my dad envisioned all of this. To complete the project, the process was done on nights and weekends for several years with his friends. We moved in right before Christmas of 2007, finally coming home with my power wheelchair for the first time. Thank you, Dad, for your hard work, dedication, and love.
Well, you need to do a video to show all of that, because people, we need to know. Again, this is why we do the podcast of what's possible. Now, I'm looking at you with closet doors and a door behind you, but for Rock Your World, we really need to do like an on location to show people, what you can do. And I also want to add financially, what that means, but also time financially, and also, you're in the East Coast. Land's not available like it is here per se. And to really, there's a lot that goes into that, not just with a hammer and some nails.
Luckily, it was in the same town.
It's luckily, but at the same time, um, this isn't poof and it happens. It takes a community. He had good friends. He had the skills, and it's very important that that gets acknowledged, but people who need to know it can happen.
I didn't mean it like that.
Oh no, 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 no. No, I you no, it is luckily that things came together. But the coming together is still it's an effort and things need to
Yeah.
happen and buying and dealing with real estate and knowing how to do a hammer. You were fortunate that it can be in the same area and you maintain your school and your community and the people that you're around. But at the same time, we have to acknowledge sometimes you have to move halfway around the world to get certain things that you need from your life.
It was all trees.
Mm. Let's talk about your writing. Same thing. How you've moved on with that.
When I started writing, I needed the help of a leader and two sidewalkers, one of which was an occupational therapist assisting me with my poor head neck control and weak core strength. After 13 years, I transitioned to the elite discipline of paradressage. It is when the horse and rider perform a test in a 20-meter by 60-meter arena that is written from memory and follows the prescribed pattern of movements. Besides giving me the therapeutic benefits of writing, this challenges me to learn dressage vocabulary, patterns, and autonomy as I control an equine on my own, off lead.
That's amazing. I dealt with more just my needs because Graham, I think because he remembered walking, wanted to walk, but he fell like a drunk. That was the first thing that I really noticed. He'd go up and he'd go down. He'd go up, he'd go down. He fell hitting his head in every direction. It wasn't like, ooh, I tripped over my feet, fell down. And he'd get up again and he'd go back down. There were no hugs and kisses as a parent, not getting that. I still remember my first kiss, he was about 3, but it was like this open suction cup, like
Mm.
wow, wow, I didn't get a first mwah kiss. I think he was 5 or 6. But it wasn't like mommy help me or anything to do with that. Again, diapers till 6. His biggest milestones or latest. He didn't ride a bicycle till he was 9. And you can actually see it on YouTube. His dad's crying. He said, "This is the happiest day in his life." I said, "Really? Of all the things we've done, this is it?" And he goes, "He'll always be independent now because he can ride a bike." Like that,
Mm.
that's what he was looking at is what can we make him that independence. He won't drive a car. He'll never drive a car. And yes, he can ride his bike and we have that, right?
We don't need pity. We need people to celebrate with us for real things.
But your real things too are what you're capable of doing. I don't want anybody looking at me and go, "Oh, Michelle could have been this great ballerina." That's not my plight in life, and I don't want to be a ballerina, right? It has nothing to do with having a movement disorder. And so I will
I'm
say that
getting ready for another horse show.
yeah. And what you realize with the horse shows, people don't understand with horses. It's not about getting on top of a horse.
Mm.
When you're doing dressage, you mentally you're going through the performance in your head. There's a whole pre movement that goes on to all of that. And again, what the horses are great for, not just being on the horse, but you have that spatial awareness. You have that ability to control something that's living, which is great. There's all of these things that go into play in getting ready for, a performance.
The indoor arena is harder to practice.
That's funny. I like the indoor arena more because I found the ground was more even and softer than the outside. I had more rocks or hard patches and so forth that could change the back gait of the horse.
4 horses at once.
Yeah, that's nice. It's
Mm.
yeah, sorry. It's okay.
The indoor arena is harder to practice because 4 horses at once.
Oh, yes, it's crowded. Yes, that's true. But again, it's all this is a whole thing. Is it a movement disorder to say that Kay gets overwhelmed with 4 horses and all of that going on? Or is it just that, you know what I mean? As a rider, it's just more complex to work with and has nothing to do with being a movement disorder. And and that's what I don't think some people see the difference. They're always looking to make, I think, things easier for people with movement disorders. And honestly, you have to allow the challenge as well.
Outside, I have my own arena, and I start in a few weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's finally warm enough. That's wonderful. Um, what I would like to talk about a little bit with movement disorders is also we had siblings, again, and the stress that the family goes through, and I think it has to be organized. I still remember Gordon one day going, "My life would be completely different if it weren't for this Haemophilus influenza." Because again, there's times you have to go to therapy and you're loading up everybody to go to therapy or these kind of things. Um, there were days I shouldn't have been driving. The being up maybe all night with maybe 2 hours of sleep, and that wasn't uninterrupted because again, when your child has movement disorders, there's so many more things that you have to work with them for assisting. It's not like at the end of the day, all that's over and you wake up the next morning. There's still a lot that goes on, especially if you're a caregiver.
My sister actually just had an interview with the NICU.
That's wonderful. Yeah, it's important to recognize, and I don't think people always see it.
Mhm.
I, I have to work with people with that. Like I tell them that the sibling is not there as an extra pair of hands sometimes. Sometimes they just need to go off in color.
You don't just need rest. You need community and people who get it.
I used to joke around. I didn't have any more friends on this phone. All my conversations were with doctors and therapists. As my recent calls. If I hear one more time, please hang up and dial and listen carefully as our menu has changed because you're calling too many doctors and medical practices. But it's
We
fatigue.
depend on others more than
Sorry.
we depend on others more than we want to. And we're often made to feel bad about it.
That's very true, and it shouldn't be. At the same time, there's a great way of saying, like I had to teach my kids time. I once told Graham, when I say in a second, it can be 2 to 5 minutes. When I say in a few minutes, it can mean 5 to 20 minutes. And he looks at me, goes, Mom, a second's a second. I said, I know, but there's that, but at the same time too, for them to need help. And this is really true as if people have movement disorders when they're older. They're used to that independence already, and it got taken away from them for whatever reason, maybe a stroke or Parkinson's, or I mean, I can go on and on. And now to sit there and wait for someone to help them with their toothbrush, that's rough.
We can succeed. We just have to see the milestones differently.
It's not only milestones differently. Again, I'm a movement specialist. You're a college student. You ride horses. We are just different despite the movement disorder. And I think there's that fine line that people just don't see sometimes.
I'm not a diagnosis. I'm a person, and my movement story is still being written.
As am I. My life is still being written. You're still being written. I wouldn't send Graham to certain schools when they introduce, if my kid had autism, this is where I'd send him. I'm like, I don't have an autistic child. My child's name's Graham. He happens to have autism and a lot of other things, but I don't define him as autistic. I did the other day when he was getting blood drawn. Again, I'm not there to explain his life story. Guys, he has autism. If you want him to stick his arm out, tell him to stick his arm out. Don't ask him, do you want to lay down? Do you want to sit up? This is too overwhelming. So I might just say right then and declare him autistic, but I don't ever do that really in normal cases, just in specific.
I need my arm held.
Yeah. Graham, it used to take five of us, and they'd laugh, and I'd tell them too, if we were in Phoenix Children's Hospital, I said, call Richard from the PICU nurse, and they go, why? But he was the only one that could draw Graham. He was a great nurse. I say was, he might still be there. We're out of the pediatrics stuff now, but Graham, low tone. He could be like this, and like Houdini, he could pop a valve and no and get out of it because he could like literally almost dislocate his shoulder to get to move it. So
I've done things people said I'd never do. I've lived more fully than some people ever try.
and what by saying that, Kay, though, you know more than most people how capable you are. And because I think people aren't challenged these days, like if I want to know what 1 plus 1 is, I just ask my phone. In some aspects, to a lot of people, we've created a movement disorder there because life is too easy. All of evolution of mankind came from difficulties, not because it was easy. Like Kennedy said, we choose it because not only but because it's easy, because it is difficult going to the moon, and that's why we did it. And sometimes it feels like we're going to the moon when you're dealing with a movement disorder. I mean, as a family, I'm not talking about as a stereotypical.
You can be powerful, even if your body doesn't move like everyone else's.
Absolutely. That's probably the statement of the year. And you can do things because you can do things, not because you have a movement disorder. Yeah. But I would like to talk about again, you mentioned how much your wheelchair probably cost, but the financial stress. You have to realize, guys, nobody planned for this. You didn't plan for this. Your child didn't plan for it. Your siblings, your aunts, uncles, your husband, spouse, partner, whatever you want to say, did not plan for this. There will be someone that really has to hunker down and be the finances, go to work because it has the insurance. Sometimes you're keeping a job for the insurance, not because you love the job, because that's what's in best interest of your family. And sometimes the other person is considered like I called it the therapy taxi. It's not about one person's doing something more important than the other. This is again where what you're capable of and what a movement disorder does, it really changes a lot of aspects who we are as human beings, adults or family members. And that needs to be looked at.
You're not imagining it. Try it.
No, it's not imagine. And I might get certain services here in Arizona. Arizona is probably the best state for because again, wheelchairs, let's say, are covered. In Missouri, it might not be. And you really have to do a lot more homework. Sometimes, again, like I said, you were fortunate that you could stay in your community. Some people have to move because insurance, schools, states, local governments don't often cover what people think actually gets covered or what people need.
It is not straightforward.
No, one of the things I like to say is like state of Arizona is not a menu state. They don't sit there with the menu going, "What would you like?" Oh, we have speech pathology, we have physical therapy, we can modify your home. Now, that's where social media, like our podcast, is amazing because you learn about these things, let's say equestrian or working with hippotherapy, and you're going into that going, oh, can I get that? And you might find that that service coordinator is going, oh yeah, we can authorize hippotherapy. And you're thinking, why didn't you tell me that? It's just not the way that they work. They don't tell you things up front. You will learn more from people like us and Facebook and other parents that have gone through, especially in your state or local. But you need to ask. You need to ask.
And depend on wording.
Right. And again, it's lack of information, it's lack of direction. One of the things I wanted to do was a website actually navigating disabilities, but I just I can't keep doing everything. So, but again, it puts pressure on families. The system is broken, especially let's say finances again. Dave Ramsey doesn't cover this topic. Now, Susie Orman goes in about short-term, long-term disabilities, like if you suddenly have a heart attack, how are you going to pay the bills? Because by the difference between your end of your paycheck to Social Security is a big gap. And these are valid points. But again, your parents didn't, I didn't account on this. Um, I'd say my son by age 18 was probably a $2 million kid if we looked at it all. Now, I didn't have $2 million. My time went into it, my effort went into it, but again, like limited access and so forth, those things come into to play as well as just the finances of it. And so I really, again, if therapy wasn't accessible or it wasn't working, let's say in my son's case, I eventually became his movement coach. I created this not to start a business. I only did this to get my son back when everybody gave up on it because that's also what happens. Well, if he was just stronger, if he was just smarter, if it was always Graham's fault. So again, movement disorders don't pick the perfect place. You think in Phoenix I can get services, yes, but not if you're in the Grand Canyon, you're not going to get speech pathology.
Mhm.
So it again, movement support should be a right, not a luxury. And again, Kay and I are lucky that we had a community that got us, navigated us this again, changed changed real life as we know it, but real life for many people is very different from this. And I can see where people can even get very angry or just hurt.
Connected us.
Yeah, it connected us. And we really it's an important connection and will continue. But I really want to just saying that it is hard, but it's not hopeless. There are resources out there from legal, financial, emotional support. But with special needs or movement disorder, you have to know what you need, right? And ask, you say, I need this. Is it possible? Start changing instead of saying, I have, let's say, cerebral palsy. Now what? Well, that you're just going to get a cerebral palsy. You're not a diagnosis. You need help. Get specific. Start looking at that.
Yeah.
You know, Kay has done amazing things, but Kay has a community and she's successful because of it. Yeah. Yeah, me too. But I don't think people see the whole picture. It's you, every person that's touched your life has brought you to this. And I think it's more obvious when you have a movement disorder versus just someone that's got a job and they're 24. You're not thinking of your fifth grade teacher. But a lot of people go into this equation and it's amazing. It's remarkable. And the proof is in the pudding.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I can't thank you enough for being here. Um, Kay and I will continue to do it. Questions, suggestions, we love it. Bring it in. Um, Let us know what you wanted us to cover, and we will keep rocking the world. And thank you very much. See you in the next podcast.